The first time I touched his skin, I thought he might punch me. Instead, he just froze like someone who had forgotten what warmth felt like. Evan Hayes was everything I wasn't. Confident, stoic, beautiful in that sharp cinematic way that made teachers forgive him for not paying attention and made everyone else want to orbit him. He wasn't cruel, just untouchable, like frost on a window. And I was just Liam, the quiet guy who volunteered to take notes for the group project no one cared about. Our dorm shared a wall so thin I could hear his late-night sighs through it. Every night, he came back from basketball practice with a limp in his step and that same exhausted exhale. It bothered me more than I wanted to admit. So one night, after too many internal debates, I knocked on his door with a bottle of lotion and a trembling heart. "Hey," I said. "You, look like your back's killing you." He looked up from his laptop, eyes half-lidded, clearly unimpressed. "And you want to fix that?" he asked, one brow raised. I almost chickened out, but something in his tone, tired, maybe a little curious, kept me there. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "I used to help my dad with his shoulder injuries. Could help, just, if you want." He stared for a long time. Then, with a shrug that somehow felt like a challenge, he turned around on his chair. "Fine. Knock yourself out." That was the first night. The air between us changed, thick, electric, terrifying. My hands trembled as I pressed them against the hard lines of his shoulders, the tension living beneath his skin. His body was warm, tense, alive. I could feel his heartbeat through my fingertips. "You're good at this," he muttered after a while. "Thanks," I whispered. We didn't talk much after that, but somehow it became a routine. Every night around 10, I'd knock. He'd open the door. Sometimes he'd grunt. Sometimes he'd smirk. But he always let me in. The massages turned into quiet conversations, the kind you only have in the dark. He told me about his mom, who worked 2 jobs to keep him in school. I told him about my dad, who didn't know what to do with a son who liked painting more than football. We didn't say the word lonely, but it sat between us like a ghost we both recognized. One night, I noticed a scar on his shoulder. Long, pale, running like lightning across his skin. "What happened?" I asked softly. He hesitated. Then, almost too quietly, "Car accident. Freshman year." He didn't look at me. I wanted to touch it, not out of pity, but because it felt like part of the story he'd never told anyone. So I did. Just a small, careful brush of my thumb across the mark. He flinched, then turned his head toward me, eyes dark and unreadable. "Don't," he said, but his voice was trembling. That night I couldn't sleep. His scent, something clean and metallic, like rain, lingered on my hands. I kept wondering what it meant that he hadn't stopped me sooner. Days turned into weeks. My heart learned the pattern of his breathing, the rhythm of his shoulders beneath my fingers. And then, one night, everything changed. He didn't open the door. I stood outside for a full minute, then texted him. No answer. The next morning, he wasn't in class. I tried not to worry, but worry is all I know how to do. After practice, I found him sitting alone by the bleachers, hoodie pulled up, head buried in his hands. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't look up. "You shouldn't get involved with me." The words stung more than I expected. "Involved? Evan, I'm not." He finally looked up then, and his eyes were red, not from crying, but from not knowing how to. "You don't get it, Liam. People see me one way. If they find out you come to my room every night." He stopped, breathing unevenly. "They'll ruin you." I swallowed hard. "Maybe I don't care." His jaw tightened. "Well, I do." He walked away before I could say anything else. For 3 days I didn't see him. The silence felt like punishment. Until one night, there was a soft knock on my door. When I opened it, he was standing there, wet from the rain, hoodie clinging to his skin, eyes filled with something I couldn't name. "Can I come in?" he asked. I nodded. He stood in the middle of my room, dripping water onto the floor, staring at me like he was memorizing my face. Then, in a low voice, "I can't stop thinking about you." My breath caught. "Evan," he stepped closer. "You made me feel something I didn't know I could feel again. That scares the hell out of me." My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the rain. "What are you saying?" I whispered. He smiled, small, broken, real. "I think I'm falling for you." For a second, neither of us moved. The rain hit the window in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat neither of us could control. His words hung in the air, fragile, impossible, beautiful. I wanted to believe him, but fear dug its claws into me. "You don't mean that," I said, my voice shaking. "You're just confused. You've been stressed, tired." He stepped closer until the space between us vanished. His breath was warm against my cheek. "Do I look confused to you?" he whispered. I couldn't speak. Every instinct screamed at me to step back, to protect the thin layer of safety I'd built around my heart. But then his hand came up tentative, trembling, and touched my face like he was afraid I'd disappear. "Tell me to stop," he said. I didn't. When he kissed me, it wasn't fireworks. It was a quiet explosion, something deep, aching, honest. The kind of kiss that rewrites everything you thought you knew about yourself. My hands found his hoodie, clutching like I needed proof that this was real. His lips were soft, hesitant at first, then desperate, as if we were both afraid time would take this away. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "I've been trying to hate you," he said, laughing softly through his breath. "You make it impossible." I smiled, tears threatening to fall. "Good, because I stopped trying a long time ago." The next morning was different. The sunlight spilled into my room like a secret we weren't ready to share. Evan was half asleep beside me, his hair a mess, his arm draped over my waist as if it belonged there. For a moment, everything was perfect, fragile, but perfect. But reality always finds a way to knock. By lunch, whispers started. Someone had seen him leaving my room. Someone had seen us at the diner last night, sitting too close, laughing too much. By evening, the entire campus knew. He found me in the art studio where I always went to hide. His expression was tight, unreadable. "They're talking," he said flatly. "I know. You okay?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure. "Are you?" He hesitated. "I don't know how to do this, Liam. I've spent my whole life pretending nothing gets to me. But this." He gestured between us, helpless. "You get to me." I swallowed. "Then don't pretend." He looked at me for a long time, the kind of look that strips you bare. Then he exhaled, shaking his head, but smiling. "You're dangerous. Only if you let me be." That made him laugh. The sound loosened something tight in my chest. Still, the days that followed were brutal. People stared. Some whispered. A few snickered when we passed. But Evan never hid again. He walked beside me to class, his shoulder brushing mine. He still scowled at the world, still played basketball like it owed him an apology. But he stopped pretending I wasn't part of his life. One afternoon, during a home game, I stood in the crowd, sketchbook in hand. When he made the winning shot, the entire gym erupted. He turned toward the stands, searching, and when his eyes found me, he smiled. Not his usual smirk, but something open, vulnerable, his walls finally gone. That night, he came to my dorm again, no knocking this time. "You drew me," he said, holding up the sketchbook he'd stolen from my desk. I blushed. "It's just practice. It's beautiful." He traced the pencil lines of his own face with a finger. "You made me look softer than I am. Maybe that's how I see you." He set the sketchbook down and looked at me. "You make me want to be that version of me." And just like that, the ache I'd carried for months turned into something steady, something that didn't hurt anymore. Months passed. The noise around us faded, like a storm that had run out of rain. People moved on as they always do. We didn't need to explain ourselves anymore. We just were. Some nights, I still massaged his shoulders, though now it was just an excuse to touch him. He'd lean back against me, eyes closed, murmuring, "You know this is how it all started, right?" "I remember," I'd say. "You were grumpy and almost threw me out." "Yeah, and now I can't sleep without you around." Funny how that works. Sometimes we'd talk until sunrise about the future, about leaving this small college town, about building something of our own. I didn't know where life would take us, But for the first time, the uncertainty didn't scare me. One night, while the world outside was quiet and the moonlight spilled over his skin, I told him, "You know what the craziest part is? I never meant for any of this to happen." He smiled, eyes half-lidded, tired in that soft, content way. "That's the best kind of love, isn't it? The kind that sneaks up on you." "Yeah," I whispered, "and never lets go." He reached for my hand, fingers intertwining with mine. "Then don't ever stop touching me." I laughed. Wasn't planning to. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full, thick with everything we didn't need to say. The storm had passed, the whispers had faded, and what remained was something real fragile. Yes, but alive. Outside, dawn began to break over the campus, painting the sky in gold. He pulled me closer, his breath steady against my neck, his heartbeat calm and sure. And in that quiet, fleeting moment, I realized the truth I'd been too scared to believe. Sometimes love doesn't come crashing in with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly in the form of a nightly massage, a hesitant smile, and a boy who finally lets himself be touched. Because maybe love isn't about grand confessions or perfect timing. Maybe it's just about showing up night after night until the walls fall away. And when they do, you finally see the person who was waiting behind them all along. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.